Hello, everyone. Lynn Delmastro Thompson with Heartfire Healing, and I am excited to share with you today's live topic, which is all about the danger of not feeling our feelings. So I want to start today by asking you a question. Have you ever had a pain in your body that just seems to come out of nowhere, like out of the blue, and you didn't fall, you didn't bang into anything, you didn't have any physical cause for it, and yet you feel pain in an area of your body? So many of my clients have experienced this. I've experienced it myself as well. It's actually often when we have that certain experience of pain coming out of nowhere, it can be because we have emotions stored in that area of our body and it's trying to get our attention. So in today's topic, I'm really going to be diving into why is it so important to express and feel your emotions, all of them, because we all might have certain ones that we're more comfortable with and others that we're not as comfortable with. So I want to be talking a little bit more about, why we need to feel all of them. Why do you need to feel all of your feelings? So the first reason that it is problematic and potentially dangerous not to feel all of your feelings is that when you don't, your emotions actually are made up of chemicals in your body, neuropeptides. There's a really fascinating book out there by Dr. Candace Pert called The Molecules of Emotion, and she goes really deep into this topic. So if it intrigues you, I highly recommend checking out that book, because you'll actually really understand that each emotion has like a biochemistry in your body. Well, if you're not allowing that energy and that emotion to move, then it gets stored in the body in different places. And often the body will pick an area where we've previously been injured or an area where there's some sort of weakness to kind of store that emotion. And the idea is that, the body is saving it because we think oftentimes in our head we're going to come back to it later. How many times have you felt like, you've had an emotion and then you said, oh, I'll get back to this later. Like, I don't have time to deal with my sadness right now. I'll put a pin in it, put it on the shelf and come back to it. And yet you don't. So your body is storing it, and the emotion, the chemicals that make up that emotion get stored in places throughout your body. And that is oftentimes, again, what can lead to those feelings of pain, discomfort, any weird symptoms that you get just kind of out of nowhere. It's that chemical of that emotion trying to make itself known and ask for being addressed. So, what if instead of having your body have to signal to you with pain, discomfort, symptoms that there's an emotion there, what if instead you could just feel the emotion and your body didn't need to have the symptom, it didn't need to have the pain, you could just feel it instead? So what would need to happen for that to be possible for you? Well, I think one of the biggest things is having that mindset. You don't want your body to have to suffer because you don't know how to deal with your emotions. And dealing with your emotions can sometimes be something we have to learn. Like certain emotions we may have grown up with, that those are safe to express, and others don't feel as safe. So sometimes that's a skill set too, right? That we need to develop comfort with all emotions, no matter which emotion, whether it be anger, sadness, grief, fear, worry. All of those emotions, we have to learn to be comfortable with each and every one of them. And on the flip side, when we start to have a pain or a symptom or something going on in our body, we can actually start to get curious, like, oh, is that connected to something that I suppressed, that I didn't face and address in terms of my emotions in the past? Now, sometimes you'll get the answer, like sometimes you'll be able to figure that out for yourself, and sometimes you're going to need some support in being able to figure out, well, where did it come from, because it's been there for a long time. So let me know as you're watching this if that makes sense, if that's kind of landing for you in terms of how emotions show up, and in terms of symptoms, how the body can talk to us that way. So that's kind of the number one danger that I'm seeing in terms of if you're not feeling your feelings, is that it's going to show up in your body. It's going to show up in different places as pain and other symptoms. So we don't want to feel those things. So one of the ways to avoid feeling those things is to learn how to address the emotions before they get stored up in the body. The second issue, the second challenge, is that by suppressing our emotions, they get what we can sometimes refer to, and kind of the work I do, is like a pathological expression. And that just means it's an imbalanced expression. Pathological doesn't, it sounds scarier than it really is. It just means that it's an imbalanced or unhealthy expression of an emotion. So, like, for example, the one I always like to talk the most about, because for a lot of women, it's an emotion that we're not as comfortable with, is the emotion of anger. It can feel challenging to comfortably feel and express anger for many women. Not all. Some women are comfortable with anger, but I'm going to go with anger just to kind of pick one emotion that many women can relate to. So when you suppress anger, when you don't allow it to be felt and expressed and seen, and you just kind of push it down and you stuff it down, and you just keep pushing it further down, you get often what I refer to as the anger volcano. Because what happens when we keep stuffing something down to the point that there's no more room for it, it just kind of explodes up and out. And so, let me know if you can relate to that feeling of you've suppressed a certain emotion and then it just kind of, it becomes uncontrollable and unsuppressible anymore, and you have kind of an explosive experience of that anger. So that's not how emotions are meant to be felt. Emotions are meant to just be energy, and they're just meant to be felt and expressed. So I love coming back to that idea. Emotions are just energy. There's nothing bad or good about any particular emotion because it's just energy. It's when we stop it. It's when we create like a dam in the river and we let that emotion just build up to the point the dam can't contain it anymore. And then we get, explosive anger, or we get fear to the point that we just kind of collapse inward and we can't support ourselves in that state anymore. Or grief to the point we sink under it and it's just like we're in pure depression. Like, all of those are not a healthy expression of that emotion. They're just an imbalanced expression. So one of the things that you can start to explore, if that is something you recognize as a pattern for yourself of certain emotions are okay, others aren't, is just learning that there are no bad emotions, reminding yourself, if you're feeling fear, if you're feeling anger, if you're feeling grief, there are no bad emotions. There is, no emotion by definition is bad. All emotions are okay. All emotions are healthy and welcome. And so that's a belief that you can start to address, is there's no bad emotions. I just want to have a healthy, balanced expression of all of my emotions. And then learning is the skill that goes on with this, along with this, is we have to learn to express our emotions before they become overwhelming or explosive. It's really, if you feel just a little bit of sadness and you let it come out and it moves when you just initially feel it, well, that's not so big. But if you had a whole dammed up lake of sadness or grief and you didn't feel it for a really long time and then you let it come out, it's probably going to feel a lot more overwhelming. So it's kind of like learning how to just keep letting the pressure off, or with that dam analogy, letting a little bit of water come out through the dam so that it doesn't build up into something big and something overwhelming. So the third kind of problem when we are not feeling all of our emotions and not expressing our feelings is we're not really learning what we're supposed to be learning from those emotions. So emotions often are there to alert us to something that we need to see and that we need to address. They're to say that something is not balanced in our life. So for example, to come back to anger, anger often tells us that maybe somebody's stepping over our boundaries, or that somebody is not respecting something that's important to us, and maybe we've communicated that. And if you're not feeling that feeling or seeing that I feel angry and acknowledging it, and then you're not using it as that tool or that course correction to say, hey, I need to clarify with this person that they're stepping over my boundary, or they're not listening, whatever is triggering that emotion and is asking for you to address it with someone. If you don't feel the feeling and you just push it down, you're missing that opportunity to show up in the world and to make a course correction or to change how you relate to people, whatever that is. So, the mindset here is really that you can use your emotions as kind of like a tool to help you grow and evolve as a person. Emotions, again, not a bad thing. They're alerting us to things that maybe are off balance, off kilter, not aligned for us. So feeling them and just letting them come to the surface, see the reason, and address the issue is a huge mindset shift of you're not a victim of emotions. And kind of coming back to yesterday's video where I was talking about being kind of a victim. You're not a victim of your emotions. You're just realizing, oh, I'm angry at so-and-so because this thing happened and I need to actually speak up and express myself. And that's simply the message of the anger. So it's then from that mindset of understanding that our emotions are just alerting us to certain things that we need to address, see, change, whatever in our lives, and then using those feelings to guide us to make changes and to speak up and to do what we need to do in our lives to address the issues and to evolve and grow as a person. And then the fourth and final way that that not feeling your feelings is creating issues in people's lives is, we're denying when we suppress certain emotions, when we label certain emotions as good, and when we label others as, bad or ones we're not comfortable with. We're designed to have the full range of expression of all of our emotions. That's how we are wired and designed as human beings. And if we're just saying, oh, well, I can feel worry and I can feel sadness and maybe I can feel a little bit of grief, and those are the only ones that are safe for me. The others are also part of your human expression. And when we deny that, we're denying parts of ourselves and we're denying our full human experience. So we want to be able to experience the whole range of our emotions and what they're designed to do. So just remembering and reminding yourself, if you're starting to label certain emotions as good and certain ones as not as good, or you're afraid of them, reminding yourself that all emotions are part of your human experience. We're designed to feel all of them. All, and kind of the system that I like to think of is kind of based off of Chinese medicine. So there's kind of 5 core ones. There's anger, there's joy, sadness, and they kind of see those as flip sides of the same coin, worry, anger, and fear. And everything else kind of cascades off of that. So if we don't feel all 5 of those, if we only allow ourselves like 3 of those as safe and the other 2 not so safe, that's missing out on part of how we're designed as human beings. So one way to work with that really could be that you could journal on what emotions feel most comfortable to you and which ones feel less comfortable to you, and why is that? Why do you feel certain emotions are valid and okay and acceptable and safe, and why are certain other ones not so safe, not as acceptable? Maybe you were told something when you were a child that, anger's not okay, anger's not safe. Maybe you witnessed an unsafe expression of anger in your life, and so you don't feel as safe with that emotion. But what if you could learn to see, again, it in a different light, that anger is just, it's designed for movement. That's kind of the Chinese medicine philosophy of what anger is. It's movement. Energy designed to say, hey, you're crossing a boundary, you're violating this is not okay, and put you into action. That's not bad, right? If you think about it that way, it's totally different. It shifted when I learned that particular way of seeing anger, because anger has been one that I struggle with, and one that I'm most probably inclined to suppress in my own life. When I learned that it's just designed to be movement in my life, something really changed for me. So to sum it up, we want to feel the feelings when we feel them. Try not to get into that habit of saying, oh yeah, I don't have time right now, I'll get back to that tomorrow, because how many times does tomorrow actually come for you? We want to actually release the energy behind that emotion. As we feel it, it moves, and then it doesn't build up. It doesn't become that kind of dam or reservoir of it. We want to examine the deeper meaning behind the emotion. Why am I feeling this particular emotion? Like, what is it here to tell me? Is there something in my life that I need to change or address, or a conversation I need to have? And then just learning to honor all feelings as valid. They're all emotions, all feelings are just valid. It's not right, wrong. They're just reactions, and they're just how we're wired as human beings. So no emotions are not okay. It's when they become suppressed and imbalanced that we really see the negative side. We see, the anger get explosive, or we see someone sink so deep into grief that they become severely depressed. That's not what grief really is. Grief in a healthy way is just about the energy dispersing. It's kind of like a fog that just lifts. It moves. We let go of the thing that we were grieving, like we release. So again, just learning to honor all of your feelings and emotions as valid. So that's about it for me for today. I hope that this was helpful to you, and I would love to know if you had an aha or a takeaway. Feel free to let me know in the comments. If you know somebody who might need to hear this message today, please also feel free to share it out. So until tomorrow, I will see y'all later. Bye.